Hi, it's KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guests today are Caleb Rainey and Blake Shaw, talking about the open mic or the Mic Check Poetry Fest. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you both here.
Good to see you.
Blake, of course, hangs out in our studio on a fairly regular basis. And Caleb, great to have you back on the show. It's been a couple of years.
Yes, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So this is it's Poetry Fest coming up. Blake, we'll talk about how Blake gets involved here in just a minute. But is this a program you've done before? This is the first annual, or
yes,
what? Tell me a little bit about Mic Check before we dive deep in here.
Yes. Mic Check is on its third year now.
Okay.
So this is our third annual Mic Check Poetry Fest. And the idea was born out of just wanting to elevate spoken word poetry specifically, an art form that's, based in Black art and self-expression and real freedom of speech. And so we are really digging into that and bringing some of the biggest names we can from across the country, but then also elevating local poets and letting them take the spotlight with the same renown as the big named poets that are across our country.
Talk to me a little bit about, as I said, we've spoken before. You perform professionally under the name The Negro Artist.
Yes.
So if people may be familiar with that too. But poetry for a long time, I would kind of say in the last 30, 40 years, kind of got a bad rap a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But in the last maybe 15 or 20, poetry slams, of course, I think about that. All of a sudden, poetry kind of got cool again.
Yes.
So tell me how you first got interested in this as an art form.
Oh my gosh. Well, I first got into it simply because I wanted to impress a girl in high school. Simply because she was like, I think poetry's cool. And I was like, oh yeah, I can write that totally. And so then I wrote a poem within a week and I performed it in front of the whole school just to impress her. And that's how I got hooked. But then after that, I realized there's just power in telling your story and taking the stage, and particularly spoken word poetry where it's live. It's got energy, a lot like what I think with jazz. And that's why we end up mixing those two together, is being in the space as art is being created and being done differently than it'll be done the next time, right? It just has this really fun energy. And so I am a little addicted. So that's what happened.
And you've performed, not only locally, but regionally and all around the country.
Yes. So I've performed in almost every state. I'm working on every one of them. And yeah, this is just what I do full time. Is I am a full-time poet. And I've published a couple of books. I've released a couple of albums, one of them being with Wave Cage, in which they perform behind me and we do a live studio album of that. And it's just something I can't get enough of.
So then the Mic Check Poetry Fest, we'll talk in a minute about the different poets that you're bringing in. What is the format then? Is this is it I'll call it a show. Not really. You call it the Mic Check, but not really an open mic. You're bringing in a lot of poets to perform in one space.
Absolutely. We have just a string of events is what I like to call it, right? On Friday night, November 8th, we've got Rudy Francisco, who is one of the biggest spoken word poets you can name in this country, coming and performing at the Hancher. And so he'll do 2 shows that night. And then Saturday, November 9th, we will have workshops with these big poets that we've brought into our community. And then we'll have Poetry in Motion, the show that we have with Blake, and then a poetry slam, a late night poetry slam. So it's all of these events in which you can either take in some poetry, you can also write, and you can also share, right? And so it's all, there's something for everyone.
So a poetry slam is usually when there's an opportunity for people in the audience to get up,
yes,
to come
that is,
and share and jam. To put it in, to get back into Blake's Irv here.
Absolutely. That is where you can actually bring 3 of your poems, and either you can be a part of the open mic portion of it, or you can compete and you'll win a cash prize. So it's really fun.
Okay. Caleb, I'm going to give you a minute, but I will ask you to share maybe a little short something with us.
Okay.
We'll make this a performance, but I'll give you a little warning while I ask Blake. So Blake, what's your part in this? in poetry in motion.
Yeah, we were kind of joking before that I really don't know yet, which is wonderful. Exactly how I would love to do something like this. So I'm going to bring a jazz quartet with my regulars, Christopher Jensen on drums, Dan Padley on guitar, and Nolan Schrader on sax. And I'll be playing some bass. And so we are going to hear some of the material beforehand. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down some vibes, some moods, some emotions, some colors that I heard that hit me as soon as I heard what they are gonna lay down, and then I'm gonna tell these guys about these things. Maybe I'll talk about a groove. Maybe I'll give that much, but I want to leave it with just that kind of raw data, and we're gonna improvise around them speaking.
Will the quartet be a part of most all of the guest poets that you're bringing in, or here and there? How's that going to work?
For Poetry in Motion, they'll be a part of every artist, and I believe we've got 6 lined up. And then Blake, I haven't told you this, but I'll probably ask you all
Breaking
to improvise
news
behind me too.
All right,
Like I'll
guess
probably
so.
share a poem and be like, "You guys figure it out." But yeah, so all 6 of the local poets that we're bringing in or that we're elevating will have Blake and the quartet backing them. And I'm really excited. The poets are so excited because often as poets, we are on the stage by ourselves. And so the idea of being able to be with a group and changing the poem to listen to each other, they've all named how excited they are. And I was like, you're in good hands with Blake.
Well, you're right. When you recite or narrate, in front of music, even if it's not a song that you are doing, it changes the rhythm. Of course, we all have that image of our mind of the beat poet with the bongo drums, and how that, but as silly as that is, but it's a different delivery because there is music and stuff in the background. So it definitely brings an added dimension. Blake, you are a songwriter,
A little bit.
which is songwriting and poetry are kind of next door neighbors. Have you ever thought about diving deeper into the lyric end of this in kind of Caleb's universe in your own musical work?
Yes, but I'm so scared. It takes a lot of work. I mean, the colors that I write, when I'm arranging music and composing just instrumental music, I think really, really deeply about that. So when I think about words, it doesn't come very quickly for me, and I, admittedly and kind of stupidly, I get frustrated, and I know it takes practice, and I know I have to fail a whole bunch to get good at something like that. And I guess I'm just not ready to fail at something else. I'm still failing at like bass and singing and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I'm gonna keep working on that.
Oh yeah, he's a failure. A total failure. Well, you're right. When you have to sit down in front of a blank piece of paper or a blank word processor screen and just start, I am so there, and I am failing at that right now too. So I am there with you, Caleb. As you said, you have a lot of local and regional poets who are going to be involved in this, including Iowa's Poet Laureate.
Yes, Vince Gutera is going to be one of our performers, and Blake will be backing him. I'm really excited. He's a lovely poet, very talented, and we're happy to have someone with that title and have earned that spot as being recognized as Iowa's Poet Laureate to be on our stage with us. And then we also have other poets. We've got Danica Kelly, we've got Kelsey Bigelow, Mr. Obbs, Sam Yu, and Shayna Marie. And so all of these poets are poets that I've personally seen read and perform, and they each have their own different style, which makes me so excited about what they're going to do with Blake, because each piece is going to be so different. And I just get really excited about seeing what they're going to bring. This is going to be an event that is a one of a kind, right? Even if you came to see these poets or Blake at a different event, it won't be the same. And so that makes me excited, because that feels like we're in on a secret.
It is. You described it at the top of the show. It's like jazz.
Yes.
It's different every time you do it. So it's very much like a musical performance.
Oh, yeah.
if you had to characterize, your poetry or one of the other poets on the, are there commonalities in theme, in structure? Does it always rhyme? And if it doesn't, and if it doesn't rhyme, what makes it a poem instead of just a narrative?
Oh, great question. So we do have some poets on there that do rhyme, right? And really lean into that. Some of them have rap and hip hop backgrounds, and so they love a good rhyme, especially internal rhymes. But a lot of our poets don't rhyme, and they are somewhat narrative. But the things that you'll know is that they're going to bring raw emotions and authenticity while using poetic techniques. You'll still get rhythm, right? You still have an inherent rhythm in these poems. You'll still have some rhyme here and there. You'll have alliteration where we have repetition of sounds, right? And so we'll still use these techniques, but there are points where it will sound just more conversational, where like you will feel more comfortable and like, oh, this person's just talking to me, and there's music behind it and it feels like something. And at some point we stop asking ourselves, is this a poem or not? And I would argue probably like, is this a song or not? And did I feel something? Did it move me? Am I connected to it?
That's the important part, is did you feel something?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you'll feel something.
Yeah.
Like
it's not about how much, the meter.
No.
Yeah. Or how many syllables.
Yeah. Did you follow iambic pentameter? No, I didn't. And sometimes a poet will set up those kinds of structures and then immediately break them, right? And I think we do that musically as well. But it's you set up a rule or a groove and then you go, actually, it's different.
Breaking the rules is really fun.
It's so fun. And spoken word is the one that's begging you to break the rules. That's the art form that's going, please, like, be not just the sonnet that you know of Shakespeare, but be something more and different.
Mike Check Poetry Fest presents an evening of spoken word and jazz fusion Saturday, November 9th, and this will be at the Iowa City Senior Center.
It will.
So you're anticipating maybe some of their clientele to come and check it out too?
We would hope so. We did this at the Senior Center 2 years ago, and we did get a lot of attendees that way, and we are hoping for intergenerational. We are really intentional about our lineup and making it that it will, reach the young people. We've got a college student in this lineup, as well as, Vince Cotero, who's been doing this work for decades and is an older person, right? We want to range there in all kinds of identities. And it's the hope that you show up and you'll be able to find yourself with someone on the stage.
How do we get tickets?
Oh, yeah, so you go to iowacity.poetry.com. Mike Check Poetry Fest is created by Iowa City Poetry. And so if you go to iowacity.poetry.com, you can look at Mike Check Poetry Fest and find all of that information. Please register beforehand. There are also fest passes, so that if you're interested in doing any or all of the other things that I named, the workshops and other performances, that's the best way to get that bundle deal and get yourself into all of those spaces.
So the other activities, just to recap a little bit, we've got the show at Hancher, and then a workshop. I assume that's during the day on Saturday.
We have two workshops.
Okay. So you can get all information on all of this at iowacity.poetry.com. And Caleb, if people want to follow your adventures and find out where you're performing and your shows and your books and releases and things like that, how do they do that?
The best way would be to follow my website, thenegroartist.com. That would be the best way for you to keep up with what I'm doing and also to see my work and see what's happening in my life.
And Blake, the busiest man in showbiz, in the corridor. I know that you are keeping extremely busy. You got your new job at Mount Mercy.
Yeah.
How's that going?
Wonderful.
Good.
I love it over there. I really do.
And you're still at Cornell, helping
still
with
over
their
there.
jazz program as well. And
making it bigger and bigger every year.
And playing a few shows. How do people keep up with you?
I'm a simple millennial. Instagram, the Blake Bass, THEE Blake Bass, or on Facebook is good.
All right. Well, this sounds like a blast. Thanks so much for coming and telling us about it. But Caleb, I asked. I didn't forget. I didn't forget.
I wondered.
I didn't forget. Before we go, give us just a little taste of the Negro artist.
Yeah. To the girl who wants to be a poem. You think your body is meant to be a metaphor, broken into bits scattered across pages. Irresponsible poets play with you. You look in the mirror and think your smile is like a simile. Remembering you are only like something, like beautiful, like appreciated, like loved, stuck wondering what it feels like to be. Your lungs are a relentless repetition. Each breath a memory of moments that the darkness calls home and the sunlight cannot reach. You put your hand to your heart and think the rhythm is the sound of breaking. Every time I meet you, I want to write you into a Band-Aid. I want my words to wrap you in a warmth so hot it does not burn but simply melts all the lies off of your skin. I want my voice to carry your insecurities and then drop them off a cliff so you can see how they were holding you down. I want my hands to move mountains of bad memories, flatten them into valleys of value overflowing with worth. I throw my heart at you, beg you to hold on tight, to stay above water. But you are not a poem, and I am not a god.
Wow.
Oh, you're supposed to do this.
That wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks for giving us just a little taste.
Yeah.
And this and more at the Mike Check Poetry Fest event, Poetry in Motion. Again, Saturday, November 9th. Get tickets at iowacity.poetry.com. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can hear the Culture Crawl live on the radio most weekdays at 10:30, on demand at kcck.org/culture, or subscribe using your favorite podcast player. Watch our videos on the KCCK Facebook and YouTube channels. Our producer is Lydia Kilgore. The Culture Crawl theme is composed by Vivian Shanley. I'm Dennis Green, and I'll talk to you later.